Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I'm going to be interviewing Karen Blaine. Karen Blaine has a new book out, so we're going to be talking about that. It's called You Are Not Alone. For those of you who haven't read one of Karen's books, Karen is a published author, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive empath dedicated to inspiring her readers to embrace their authentic selves and live more fulfilling lives. With a background in creative arts and a BA in speech communications, Karen writes books that explore personal growth, the power of the subconscious, and the importance of self-love. Her works, including You Are Not Alone, Who Are You, Dreamscapes, and Subconsciously Speaking, offer tools for self-discovery, resilience, and emotional well-being. A lifelong California resident, Karen is also a passionate reader and a proud mother of four. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Liz. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm looking forward to our conversation, especially these days. We can use as much help as we can get around self-discovery, resilience, and our emotional well-being. So let's jump right in. I always like to ask my guests, what their journey was today, but I want to tap straight into the book. What was your journey and inspiration for your new book?
So for me, it was a matter of coming to terms as I started to write all my books. I started to realize that I'm a highly sensitive person, and I didn't know too much about it until I started to really go further than into the subconscious, and it made me think back to my childhood, which I hadn't really done, and some of the lessons that I heard that didn't fit with me. It was like toughen up, you're not sensitivity is not okay, and everything I heard from just from people in general and from my family of origin, let's just say, wasn't necessarily positive. But I've learned to make sensitivity a positive thing. Actually, it can be a very big strength. I now call it a superpower. A lot of people have it. So,
How did
in
you,
fact,
how did
everyone has a superpower.
Yes, and I love your rewrite. So talk about
Well,
that rewrite. Like, I'm also a highly sensitive person. I know a lot of my listeners are too. So talk about that discovery of becoming an HS or realizing that you're an HSP, rewriting that and claiming it as a superpower.
right. Like 15 years ago, a girlfriend of mine gave it to me, the book on it. And I was like, because I had so much negativity associated with it, I kind of threw it in the trash until I finally realized, no, it's positive. It's a good thing to be. We need more people with sensitivity and empathy in this world and compassion and love. And so that's when I decided to make other people aware as much as I could that you can have a perfectly wonderful life and be a highly sensitive person and just use it. Use it however you can. Find your own way. Like I said, your own superpower. And most people, everyone has them.
Yes. Was it a Dave Markowitz's book, the HSP book?
It wasn't. I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Okay.
It was
I
long. It was
also,
must have been the first.
a previous interview was for me was with Dave Markowitz. I've actually interviewed him a couple times, and he has a book on being highly sensitive. So I recommend
Oh,
the audience out there, anyone
good.
who's interested. Yeah,
I did read one by a woman. I forgot her name right now. But that stimulated it all too. Yeah,
great. I'm
and
glad more people
empaths,
are
of
talking
course.
about it. Yeah, I'm glad more people are
Yeah,
talking about it. Yeah, and being an
me
empath
too.
is part of it. You take on energy
Absolutely.
from other people. So how do you
Ugh.
navigate that in your own life, Karen?
So I've had to learn this, and all of a sudden, all of it made sense to me. Going to parties, being a part of the world. I had my kids, like I had 4 kids in 5 years. So I had to do a lot of we were coaching them all, and my husband was coaching them, and I was always, you know, on the stands and trying to deal with a group of moms and feel comfortable with whatever they said. And a part of me always had this feeling of not quite belonging. So I always, and it just started to make me think why, and I wanted to analyze it more and more and more. And so that's what I did. And what it finally made me realize after I really, really did my homework is make me realize that if I'm acting in congruence with my own authenticity, which means being aware of me. So my thoughts and my emotions are in tune with the actions that I'm showing, say to other women, then I can be okay. Then I go to gratitude. And then I go to gratitude. My child is out there pulling their heart out. And then I go to happiness because when you're in gratitude, how can you be unhappy? It's very difficult. So I started to really learn all of these things. And maybe I wished I'd learned them earlier, but I don't think I think my kids felt all the love and nourishment because of I was always empathic with them. So
Mm,
attuned to them. They're
nice.
good kids. So
Yeah.
adults.
Thank you for that real-time example too of being able to walk yourself through that process. Talk a little bit more about that sense of belonging and the self-esteem and realizing that you can be part of the group and kind of relaxing into and lessening those social anxieties that we can have.
Right. Well, a lot of it is self-love. And if you grow up thinking maybe there is deep down subconsciously, maybe there's something not quite right with you, then what you have to start with is understanding that you are not alone. That's why I named it that title, because there's millions of us out there, millions of us that feel that we are highly sensitive people. I think it's 20% of our population. And so we are being together, having that connectivity can make you feel like you don't need to you have self-love, connecting and then feeling it inside yourself, knowing that someone else has your back, I have your back, and someone else has your back, and also knowing you have that inner light inside you. Both of those take that self-love and brings it all the way up so that you are resilient. And then with that resilience, you can move on. You can get past it. If you want me to give you one more example, it's a lot of us can start negative self looping, right? Oh my gosh, if I'd only acted that way and I wouldn't have gone that way, and we go down this rabbit hole, right? Or at least I did. And then what I've learned to do, and this is a heavy duty one, is to reframe the entire situation. So I find a bathroom, go to the bathroom, take 15 minutes, revisualize the entire experience in my head. I started to do that actually over like 5 years ago or 9 years ago, something like that, and reframe it using like as if it were a camera, step by step by step, saying, okay, how would this be if I looked at it this way? How would it be if I stopped here and said, that wasn't supposed to be hurtful to me? Let me just reflect upon it. And that negative looping stops. You can say, I'm going to stop it right now, and I'm going to make it positive. And the reason I'm going to make it positive is because I am going to go to gratitude, and I am going to be resilient, and I'm going to learn that I am special because so many of us don't think we're special. So that's the one that takes a lot of time. And I'm worthy. We are worthy of everything. We're worthy of anything. And that's sorry to make it so long.
No, that was a beautiful reframe. Thank you for sharing that story, Karen, because I think a lot of individuals, and this can go, right along with your book, You Are Not Alone. We are not alone in the negative self-talk. And I think some people are just better at navigating it than others are, or maybe theirs is a little bit more quieter than others seem to be. So I really like that reframe that you showed where your mind started going into a story, and then you took that 15 minutes to reframe it and rework it and present yourself with something new. It's like getting rid of the naysayer in your head, right? Because it's like, no, that's not true.
Right. It
Yeah.
was just me going into that negative looping, negative
Mhm.
tapes that maybe we heard as children or whatever it came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Great story. And I want to like sink a little bit deeper into that self-love because we can hear that a lot. And then a person can be left with, well, what is self-love? I mean, we're used to resourcing it from others, but how do we resource ourselves with self-love?
So, well, I'm sure you've heard this before because you've done it, but some of the everyday things can do are the affirmations. I do mantras, which I pick an everyday mantra, not a bija mantra, which is more of like the chanting,
Mhm.
but the mantras that are like I am worthy, I love and accept myself. And so if you do that all day in front of the mirror over and over again, and you're trying to change that brain of ours, that helps. And I said the affirmations, which is similar. It's more, but it's also easier. It's quicker. So you might have to sit to do the mantras and really kind of be in a meditative frame. I actually do it in hypnosis where I use conversational hypnosis and I'll put someone in kind of a deeper state, not full hypnosis, but a state where they're really relaxed. So when I say these things, they can go deeper with them. Also, mindfulness. Ugh, that's such a big one. Because if we're mindful every day about, first off, what we have to be grateful for, because, like I said again, gratitude is the key to happiness. If we no, I'm alive today. I'm breathing. I mean, that alone, is I've learned to be grateful for that. And the people I love are healthy and okay. So I go to that point and then I use mindfulness to say, I'm going to stay right in this moment. Not going to go to the future. I'm not going to go to the past. I'm going to be mindful. And it will raise the self-love awareness. That's how I feel.
Mhm. Yeah, affirmations actually are very helpful and bring us into a state of gratitude, like you were saying, for sure. 7 years ago, I was going through a divorce, and I used affirmations as part of mine. I think affirmations are a way also to uplift ourselves when we're feeling down. If we have these things, I used to have sticky notes in my bathroom on the mirror,
Excellent.
and when I opened up the door, I had sticky notes on the inside. And I had a daily ritual where I would go through because, when you're going through something difficult, whether, any kind of loss you have, and you're struggling and you're feeling low, I think just, reminding yourself that it isn't as bad as your mind and your body may be feeling sometimes. And reciting these affirmations can actually lift us up and up level us and remind us that, whatever we're experiencing will pass and that we can hold both not feeling well in the moment and affirming that we also have these other qualities within ourselves at the same time. So we're not fully stuck in that negativity loop, but also, can hold both, while we're holding that, negative feeling we might be having or, low feeling we might be having. We can also hold the positive as well to kind of help balance
Holding two
out.
thoughts in your hand at
Yeah.
once. Exactly. How long do you think it took you to get through some of the worst part of your
I think,
divorce?
that acute phase of any loss for me has taken a couple months. Yeah, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be, the loss of my marriage or the loss of my mother a couple years
Oh,
ago.
I'm sorry.
When you're in it, those affirmations help, I really feel, during that acute phase, because it's
Mhm.
that reminder that it's not just the pain.
Right.
It's just not the emotion that you're feeling from your experience, that there is also these other things and can help move us forward. I also like that you use gratitude. Your book is lovely. I was looking through it. I love the
Thank
way that
you
you
so much.
organized everything with the beautiful pictures and,
Oh, thanks.
each chapter having its own little title and then little subtitles, and little blurbs about everything that helped you along your way.
Thank you.
And I also used gratitude was one of my things. Just the other week I was, sharing about gratitude on social media and how it helped me. And you can be in a state of tears, really grieving. And if
Yes.
you just take that moment to come out of your suffering and just look at all of the things that you're grateful for, it really can
Hmm.
make a difference. And it's pulled me out of a couple different, times in my life when I felt like I was suffering. Karen, can you tell a couple stories for our audience about, how gratitude has impacted your life and how you've used it?
Yes. Like, I'll give you an example because you said a perfect thing about having holding two thoughts with in the same moment. So let's take my daughter. She had to move to Toronto, and I live in Los Angeles. And that's far for me. And I thought, oh, and then she got pregnant. And so a part of me was devastated, right? But she got a promotion and she got married, and her husband's job was there. And so I was feeling bad for me, but I was feeling happy for her. And then I thought, I don't have to feel one way or another. I can be, I can hold both of them in two hands and feel them both. And that's when I went to gratitude and said, I'm just grateful she's happy. That's where it takes me. That's where it takes us. And then the gratitude kicks in, and whatever she does, she's healthy, she's happy. And that's the main thing. So that's like one story
Yeah, it is nice how it can shift our perspective.
about it.
Thank you for sharing that story. You
Yes.
also talk
Oh, of
about
course.
in your book encouraging your passions. And I think this is really like finding where we can have activities in our lives that can actually be uplifting as well. Talk a little bit about that.
So I feel really strongly that if you don't, it doesn't matter about your job. If you don't have that passion and that meaning and that purpose to your life, it can take you down the negative road. So if you feel like you're excited, and it doesn't matter what it is, find anything, like I think I wrote in the book. If it's gardening, if it's cooking, if it's art, which I've been taking art, and I'm a guitar player, and whatever it is, um, everyone has something. Just one thing that they might love to do. That's their passion. And then that will create meaning in their life. And that is one more way they can be grateful, and they can also feel more self-love. All of this is about feeling more self-love, because when you feel like what you're doing has meaning to you, you're proud of yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, what other feelings and emotions can, that pride and having meaning in our lives serve? How can that serve us?
I think that it can serve us by giving us a reason. It's a reason to live. If we don't have, I've seen, let's say this, I've seen, you take a man, for instance, I hate to, or a woman, either one. Okay, we'll go with both. But they have 50 years on the job, and then they retire and they die soon afterward. And they were planning on traveling all over the world and this and that. But what they find is they've lost any sense of purpose, any sense of passion. So that's why I think it's so important. It's important to have your job and to love your job and what you're doing. It's important to have a family and love them, but it's also important to have something that's yours and that you love to do. That's why I think it's so important.
Mhm. Yeah, I find when I have purpose in my life, I'm more motivated. You know,
Yes. Hmm.
having a sense that I have a project, have an activity that I like to do gets me motivated, gets me excited. Also, like all these activities I like, you were speaking to guitar and you're doing art classes now, you know, and when I've done that, it has brought happiness and joy into my life.
Right. You got it. It's meaning. And that creates the rest joy. That creates joy.
Mhm. And you talk about this also, bringing that joy and fulfillment into your life. What are some other things that, our listeners could do to tap into that joy and have that sense of fulfillment in their lives?
Well, one thing I think everyone's different. I'm an introvert. So it's not going to be as easy for me to have a group as it is for maybe more of an extrovert for some of your listeners who you can still be highly sensitive and be more of an extrovert. So getting a like-minded group of people together, maybe doing yoga on the lawn on Sundays, but having a group of people that you can relate to and that they can relate to you, very important. Having knowing that you have that core that core, that connection with them, seeing with them, being with them, and whether it's yoga, whatever it is, whether it's exercise class, but whatever it is, I think it's important. And I try to have at least 5 to 10 good friends, but for me it's not quite as easy as for others, I think.
Right. I think some of our listeners, you had 4 kids, I had 4 kids, we can be living a life for other
Oh,
for many, many years, right? And I found
y-
when the kids got to a certain age and I had more time for myself, I had to kind of assess my life and go, what does make me happy? Like, what does bring me joy? What would you say for people out there who are like, well, gosh, I've been focused on my job or focused on raising a family or this, that, or the other. And like, I've kind of lost a sense of like who I am and what brings me happiness and joy. What is it that I can do to, figure that out for myself?
so the first thing, because I'm not talking about therapy at all, the first thing I would say is journaling. Just starting to journal your thoughts every day. How am I feeling? Why am I feeling that sense of emptiness, right? Your kids are grown up, they're in college now, you're not needed as much, but you don't want to pass that on to them. You want them to be happy and independent. That's our job as moms, right?
Yeah.
So we have to take it upon ourselves to do things like journal, write, whatever it is. I started to write a lot and realized that that was what was going on. I started to realize that the subconscious had always been interested, going deep and getting very introspective. Had always been important to me, but I literally spent 30 years just caring for the needs of my family. So I blocked it all out. Yeah. But then they left, and then I started to say, wow, just like what you said, what can I do to start creating meaning in my life? Same thing you said.
I remember when I was going through that journey, and every time like I was feeling extreme happiness or joy, joyful of any like level, I would tap it in. So I would take my fingers and tap it in right at my high heart, my thymus, which was really fun. That's kind of a
Uh-huh.
reminder like, oh, this is bringing me joy right now. Right. And then also the journaling, the writing it down, like kind of making a little note for myself. Okay, I want to do this again. A girlfriend of mine, up in Anacortes, um, has a thing that she does like, this is for me. Like making that mental note that when you're enjoying something or that's something that would benefit your life, like, oh, this is for me.
Yes. And then repeating it. So you've journaled it down, you circle what's important, go back to it. You can put it in your affirmations if you want. And keep on going over and over and over again because eventually it will sink in. that motivation, that purpose, that self-love. It's not all that indistinguishable from each other because we go back to where we were before kids. At least I did.
You also speak to like that self-doubt, that we can have within ourselves too. How do we overcome that when we're looking at, what brings us joy, or how are we going to live a fulfilling life, or bring ourselves meaning, or, tapping into self-love? Like what do we do with that self-doubt that we have?
Well, the main thing there is to be authentic. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning, because it's really hard to have self-doubt when your thoughts and your actions are incongruent. So if you can make them the same and you know what you're doing is authentically living right, that, and I don't know if I always did that. I don't think I did. And I think that was part, I always agreed with everyone. Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, that, once I became more authentic, this is who I am. Accept it, don't, it's okay. I mean, for me to even be on all the podcasts and to do all the social media I'm doing, it's very important, but I wanted someone else to kind of be helped by what I could say because I really felt that that would help self-doubt because being authentic is the key to living a happy life too, in addition to gratitude. I believe so.
Yeah, and I agree too. When you go through something and something helps you, you want to share it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you want to let people know like you don't have to suffer, or you don't have to feel this way, or you can overcome this, that, or the other. This is how I did it. Try this.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
it's good that you're doing
Absolutely.
that because everybody needs something different.
Right. And in terms of hypnotherapy, I'll just bring it up once more.
Sure.
Visualization is really important, right? So if you can just do that once a week for 20 minutes. And so you start at the top of your head and you were talking about your touching or something like that. So you go to, and I don't know about if you know about chakras or any of that,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you go, yeah. So you take your visualization and you go from your head through your chakras and then all the way to your toes. And you picture a white light bringing you love and peace and happiness and joy. It helps too. All these different things seem like they're small. They're not. They work. If you do them all, they work. And also, but I do think when you're in the situation, stopping and reframing is really critical. And also, one more idea is to have a little shield for highly sensitive people. We go into parties or something and we might fill out, I'll use me, I might fill out a place. So I have this invisible purple shield because purple's my favorite color. And so it's like invisible, but it's like, no, you're not, nothing's going to hurt me. I have a boundary here. And if I don't, if I'm not enjoying what everyone's saying and I'm feeling too hurt, I'll leave. I'll just leave. I won't, I won't, I'll just say I have to go and do a white lie, make up a white lie, and then head out.
I think boundaries are important. The energetic boundaries and the boundaries where, okay, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm going to excuse myself, right? And setting a boundary for
Hmm.
yourself, because as a highly sensitive person, when you're taking on energy, there can come a moment where, okay, I've had enough, I'm done, or this scene is overwhelming for me, step out or excuse yourself or whatever it may be. And have that sovereignty to know that this is the right choice for you, and, not to worry about what anybody else might think, that you're making that decision for yourself and having that boundary. So, and you're also speaking to like not people pleasing anymore, which you spoke to a few minutes ago, that you came out of that. And I think
Hmm.
that's important too, because we can get caught in people pleasing and end up staying too long in a situation where it ends up taxing us and then we're exhausted the next day. So
Oh,
I think those
yes.
boundaries are really important.
Yeah, I agree. 100%,
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah, what would you share with our listeners about boundaries and like gaining boundaries and knowing like, okay, here's my energetic boundary, here's my social boundary, here's, a boundary that I may have, with how someone is speaking to me. Let's speak a little bit about that, Karen.
Okay, this is one of my favorite topics because I had to learn it from the beginning. I do get overwhelmed a lot, and I had to finally see it as being okay. At first, it's hard to say I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed at the mall because the fluorescent lighting and I think it makes a weird noise or something because when I'm in the mall, I start to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of, and so what I'll do is I will leave. But as far as boundaries go, I will take myself out of there. But other boundaries are sometimes I have to stay. There are times when there are times when I have to say, so what I'll do is I will, this is a funny thing. I will go, usually there's food. So I will go to the table, sit down, eat my food, have a drink, and start to relax myself. That's my boundary. And what I'll do is, wait, and usually someone nice will come over and start talking to you if you hope trust it, and then you can. I like a one-on-one conversation. I don't like a conversation with a group. That's when I get overwhelmed. So a one-on-one conversation, I love to hear about their lives. I love to hear about what they're doing. So that's fine for me. So that's what I've done is a boundary for me is just to sit and relax, eat some food. And that's one boundary. But I have quite a few boundaries that I have learned.
Nice. Yeah, if we don't learn them early on from our parents, I think it's definitely a learning curve as we're growing up to like come out of those old patterns that we have and kind of create our own boundaries as we learn like what's okay with ourselves and what's not. And that changes as we get older, or we have to learn, oh, I haven't been
Mhm.
having a boundary here,
Yes,
so I need to put a boundary here now, and it's never too late for a boundary
right.
also. And I think that that's a good segue
Never.
into, since you were talking about like taking some space for yourself and getting grounded again and, having a bite to eat and then allowing someone to come up to you and engage in conversation so you can learn about them and knowing yourself and knowing like, okay, I'm better one-on-one, instead of a group. And others might be better, in a group also, which takes us to that gaining strength from others that you talk about in your book. So let's
Right.
talk about that belonging, gaining strength from others and, how that can serve us in our life.
And it's really important. It is. Once I realized that, yes, I'm an empath, and yes, I am a highly sensitive person, and I said, the world can know it. It's okay. I started to realize that a lot of people were, and that made it easier. I was able to um, go on and Zoom with other people who were like me, and it was kind of a nice feeling to know that. I really didn't. I hadn't read the books at that time. Um, I think it was Judith Orloff who did empaths, but there was another lady, just can't think of her name, who talked about HSPs. But yeah, it started to make me feel connected to the larger world rather than necessarily connected to a group. But I think most people. So I have seven grandchildren,
Wow,
and
congratulations.
I feel like thank you. And I do have a large family. They're all married, and so I have a large family who knows me and accepts me. Hey, I'm lucky. And because
Nice.
none of them are like me. They're all extroverted. They're all like they're all very self-confident. And I hope I helped with that. Yay, I hope so. I bet you did. I bet you did with your four.
It's nice when we can pass on things, to our children or see how they're shining brightly and, how they're each, I know mine are so like individually authentic within themselves. And it just makes me so proud to, see the human beings that they've become, whether that came from me or
It did.
their parent or their teachers or coaches or wherever they may have, learned it. It's kind of a beautiful
I
thing
think
to
it's
see
a
your kids
lot
learn.
mommy because I think when you're I use the word ATTUNED, not attuned. When you're very attuned to your kids' emotional needs, which is what they have in their first 5 years,
Yeah.
they grow up feeling amazing, right? And when you're not, you know, nature and nurture, and I've got another book that talks about that a lot. But and I believe it's 50-50. Yes, we are, like, I was brought into the world more sensitive, we'll use that, more emotional than others. I've had to learn to balance my emotions,
Hmm.
which yeah, I've tried really hard and I think I'm good at now. But I feel like um that is a important part about taking what we get in nurture and using that to the individual person. So each of my four kids are completely different, even though they're all extroverted, even though they're all self-confident, they are completely different. But being attuned to what each one needed from
Hmm.
a from the time they were born. And I just know already from your aura, if I can say that,
Yeah.
that you did that.
Mhm. Yeah, that was one, and my youngest is getting ready to graduate high school. And I have to say, like, raising my children was one of my soul paths for
Mhm.
sure. I loved being a mom, loved every aspect of it. Yeah, did my
Same
best
here.
and tried to, resource, all the things that I could to try to, be the best mom that I could be in the time, with what I knew at the time.
I
Yeah.
believe so. I have no doubt.
As we do, as we try to do, right? As parents,
Not
we all try
everyone,
to do our best.
but definitely you. My daughter says she has like a next door, and she says she can't believe how some of the parents aren't that invested in their kids, and that's today. So I'm like, wow, okay. And
Times are
I said,
changing. We
but
can only hope for the best for our youth, right? You
absolutely,
know,
but I'm sure I have no doubt you were.
and we all choose our situation, right? Like I'm a firm believer, in like sitting out there at the board table before I incarnated and picking out my parents and the situations and everything that I was going to learn to be the person I was, in this lifetime to learn the lessons that I needed to learn, even the difficult ones. I was just thinking, yesterday, like we have people in our lives that are teachers. And I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about people who, may be difficult. They teach us patience. I think you learn more from,
Right.
people and having to navigate relationship and navigate emotions than you do on, the yoga mat or the meditation cushion because they're giving you that firsthand
Said
experience of having to practice boundaries or practice patience or, whatever it might be. And our children are good teachers too, but also other people,
yes.
in our lives,
Centering ourselves,
Mhm.
learning to center ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. So your mother, you said, were you very close to her?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
She was
that's
a
so
mother and a
beautiful. That's
friend.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And a friend to a
nice.
lot of our friends too, which was fun. A lot of people looked up to my mother, which was really nice. I have a
Very.
lot of fun memories of all of us sitting around the table, talking to mom and all of us
Oh,
laughing and talking over each other and, just having a great time. You know,
that's so, you're
yeah.
blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots of good memories. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. And so, and this, even talking about like our relationships and boundaries and stuff like that, it's also building resilience, as we, look at all the
Yes.
teachers that we've had in our lives and, what that looks like for us. So talk about building resilience because I think that's really important. I've given several talks on resiliency here locally on the island. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you can get my free resiliency talk. And I'm a firm believer in building resiliency if you don't feel like you have a strong resiliency already. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, Karen?
Okay, I will. And I want to know what you think about resiliency. But I think that resiliency is when you can stop the negative chatter in your brain,
Mhm.
in your soul. I think resiliency is when you can start to build yourself up. I think it's when you can say, I can do that. I am enough. I think the first four chapters of that book are are basically about being resilient because if we believe we're good enough, then we can start finding our way to being resilient. If we don't, we don't get the resilience. We just fall deeper into that feeling of depression. I don't know if it's depression or if it's just not being our best.
Mhm.
What do you have if you have a newsletter and everything? I'd love to know what your thoughts of are on resilience.
Oh, resilience. Yeah, it's so interesting. As I meet and speak people over these years, I've heard stories and you can have, say two brothers or two sisters and, they had the same experience growing up and, one ends up turning to drugs or alcohol and the other one chooses personal development. So I think it's that nature nurture and like, what are we going to choose? And are we going to let our emotions get the best of us and go one direction? Or are we gonna let our emotions or our experience late our like survival offensive and where we want to choose to thrive? And I think for people, who are like really struggling, a way to come back to the self is, through that self-love that you talk about, Karen, through those boundaries, through seeing that, all of the inner speak that we might have we can reframe it. We can gain a new perspective.
Yes.
And I think it's what I tell my clients, super self-care, right? Like, how are you taking care of yourself?
Mhm.
Are you nurturing yourself? Especially if we didn't get that nurturing as a child, how are we going to nurture ourselves as an adult? Take yourself up for a cup of tea, take yourself out for lunch. It's good to surround ourselves with people too and friends and have those things, but also, finding that space where you're okay with yourself, with being with yourself, being alone, but not feeling lonely. Then as you resource
Great.
yourself, then you learn how you can resource others, like with friends or family or getting out and doing some volunteer work. Volunteer work was amazing for me. I like tout it all the time. Like if you're not feeling well, go help somebody. It's an instant
Absolutely.
shift in energy. It's an instant shift in your perspective. It takes you out of yourself and puts your focus on other, which is really important because it's to that reminder, it's not all about us. And so
Right.
easily we can get just stuck in our head,
Right.
about something that might be happening with us. But, then when you go out and you help someone else, you volunteer, whether you like animals or, helping at a food bank or helping to make Thanksgiving dinner, the day before Thanksgiving, is going to be served to your town or something like that. It's impactful,
Absolutely.
what are
Yes.
your daily practices? Yoga, meditation, all these things that bring you back to yourself and teach you how to resource yourself so you can thrive instead of survive. I guess a good way to put
Thrive instead
it.
of survive. That
Yes,
should be on all of
right?
our fridges.
I
That's
know that's been
beautiful.
my mission, don't let the
That's
naysayers get you
awesome.
down. Just keep going. And I think a lot like in the outer world too, we've got all this stuff going on that can bring you down. I mean, I am very energetically sensitive. I have a healing business and I stay away from the news and I can still feel what's going on. It impacts my dreams, or I can feel that my energy level's down. And it's just, taking care, making sure I get enough sleep. Although,
Right.
I had a little insomnia last night, thank you, menopause. But, you know, take a nap in the
I
afternoon,
hear
go
you.
for a walk, have some nourishing tea or some nourishing food, or a walk with a friend or something like that. Something that reminds you that even though there's something going on, or something that may be, causing suffering in the collective or within yourself, that you can move past it. It's coming to that thing like we can hold both at the same time. I'm going to come back to that
Yep.
again because it's so true. And after my mom passed,
So true.
really like saw that so directly, like I can hold this grief and hold joy sitting here watching my son play an instrument in a band concert, right? Like we
Absolutely.
can hold
Yes.
joy and grief at the same time. We can hold fear and, want to seek something that's going to bring us pleasure in our life too. So that's, I think, all like wound up in that resiliency. Like, are we going to let the outside circumstances bring us down? And if we dip, how long are we going to let ourselves dip? And then when are we going to pick ourselves up out of it,
Yep.
and get back to it again?
And
Yeah.
once in a while, you're on. Yeah, sure. That's okay. Once in a while, it is okay. It's totally okay to allow yourself, right? A
Yeah.
few minutes to feel those feelings and say, okay, I don't really feel well right now, but acknowledging it, understanding it. And so you have a limited amount of time and you're saying, okay, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna stay in it. I'm gonna get out of it, but I'll have gone through it in my mind. Then I will center myself and I will find my way out of it. Right? Just having a little bit of knowledge that you can go through a sad moment if you want to, and it's okay. It's okay. And
Yeah.
then you can
It's
go back
more than
to
okay.
holding everything together.
Yeah. And then having the resiliency to
Yeah,
bounce back. I mean, that's it.
that's right.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, well, you know it.
Yeah, and knowing ourselves. Yeah, knowing ourselves too. And I think knowing our triggers
Yes.
and knowing what our coping mechanisms are,
Mm,
gained during our childhood, and how those function, and,
yes.
how we can recognize them and then go, okay, I'm slipping into a coping mechanism here. How do I pull myself out of it? And not go into judgment
Yep.
either around the self. Have some that self-love and that compassion for ourselves to say, like, it's okay. I get to have these moments, and
And
move.
what happened yesterday doesn't define us, right?
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
can move ahead to tomorrow, to today and tomorrow, and not feel bad about not being perfect because none of us are perfect. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. We're all a work in progress. We're all learning, right? On this
That's
learning
right.
planet. What are the gifts?
Yes.
Talking about resiliency, I want to go back to your book, You Are Not Alone. Beautiful book, by the way. Love the images in the book and how you put it together. I just have to say that again. And like the gifts of realizing we're not alone.
I think the main gift is realizing that there are so many people around the world who feel exactly as we do. And so many of us who are in it, you know what I mean by in it, in that trigger you mentioned, or in that feeling, think, oh, I'm all alone. No one understands me. It's not true. It's not true. There are so many people who feel what we're feeling. And if we can just understand that, it's huge. It's joy. It's being grateful. And that's when I did make those first four chapters about, yes, you are not alone, but yes, we have to raise our own personal self-image. Not image, image is the wrong word, self-worth. Self-worth.
Hmm. So true. So true. Do that inner work on ourselves. You talk about that in the book too, like, how, we had these experiences. And then, what is it that we do to walk ourselves out of those experiences, to be grounded in who we are, be authentically ourselves, have high self-esteem, be able to show up for ourselves.
Right, right, absolutely. And that's how, that's how I've gotten out of it. Once I realized I was not alone, it took a lot of the feelings of sadness sometimes when I would get sad. I thought, there's a million people that feel the way I do. And it makes you feel, even if you're not hanging out with a million people, it just makes you feel like you're not alone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. I was talking about this actually yesterday over coffee with my son and his girlfriend, and that we were talking about having groups, you know, going, she's in college, so they're talking about these large topics and listening, they're sharing stories with each other. So that's one way, right? Or we can
Yes.
have someone, who maybe had alcoholic parents and is part of Al-Anon, and that group allows them to feel that they're not alone. Or moms who join a mom's group and they're like, oh my gosh, somebody else's kids do that too, right?
All of it.
I'm not the only one that feels that way. There is something to like realizing we're not alone. We have community to be able to resource. We can, if we're a mom, we can look to other mothers. If we're going through menopause, we can look to other menopausal women, right? Older women.
I'm
Since that
menopausal
was brought up, right?
too.
Might as well bring it full circle. And yeah, where can
Yeah,
we like look out and see, okay, I am not alone right now. And I don't have to,
right. And the best part about, well, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Did I interrupt you? I just was going to say, I really believe that people who think they're alone in the world start to get depressed. I do. And they don't come out of it very well. So I really wanted, even if one person felt better after reading my book, I mean, to me that would be a huge, huge victory. So I wanted to say that I felt like, no, I'm here for you. A lot of us are here for you, but I'm here for you. And and you need to be there for you. And I'm going to show you how. I'm going to give you a little bit of help along the way through the book.
Yeah, lots of good resources in the book to bring you to a state of resiliency. Yeah. Karen, so how can people find your book?
Okay, on Amazon or through my website, Eternal Empath. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
And you can
And
find
Karen,
me
I
through my
always
email.
like to ask also, um, what is a jewel of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I would say between the two, because I kept them for my last two chapters, gratitude and passions, those two things. When you're grateful, it's very hard to be depressed. It's very hard to think about yourself that much. When you're grateful, like you said, you're serving Thanksgiving dinner for the homeless, right? And you feel good inside. When you're grateful, you feel like you can take everything and be good, be okay with it. And then when you're passion and you have meaning and purpose, then you can look forward to each day. Overall, sure, there's, like you said, holding two things in one hand, grief for someone who my dad passed, it was really hard, but writing, journaling helped me with that. And so those would be the two gems, if they're gems.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. Karen, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And everyone, be sure to get her book. It's called You Are Not Alone, and you can find that on Amazon and also on her website. And I'll have that link down in the show notes, everybody. And I want to thank everyone for joining us again. Again, I am Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And you can find me on social media and at my website, Raise the Vibe with Liz, and raisethevibewithliz.com. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Bye now.